I'm back. Sick. Post that shit. Let's go. Let's go. Alright. Oop. It's gonna launch. No, iOS error. Stop. You gave me that earlier. Whatever. I can just launch it again. It's fine. Or did it say ISO? I don't fucking know. Borderline dyslexic or some shit. I don't know. It said ISO error then. No, it said iOS. I don't know what that means though. Try launching from Homebrew channel? Why would I do that? I want to play the game in glorious 16:9. F in the chat for education. Oh yeah, that's right. That happened, huh? You know, I was thinking about potentially doing a segment on that, but I actually think that like everything that I could say in a segment about the Department of Education being signed out of existence is already covered in my video where I talk about that the Department of Education is about to be signed out of existence. The only difference between then and now, okay, there we go, it's working, is that they actually signed, Trump actually signed officially the executive order to get rid of the Department of Ed. One of the downsides of always reporting live. Yeah, I mean, I try to do this in a way that like is able to be amended should new circumstances arise. Like, you know, I'll typically, I don't know. I typically try to analyze things based on where circumstances are, and the assumption is like, unless anything changes, like anything significant changes, then like that's where we're at. And nothing significant changed between that video and now, apart from like they did the thing we all assumed that they were going to do, which is fucking sign the EO that eliminates the Department of Ed. Hold on, I gotta I think I actually have to. There we go. Feels like every day is news change Hitler. I mean, yeah, it's like there's just constantly some Hitlerite shit going on in the in the news. It seems. It's not great. It's not great. Executive order. Fuck, I'm not going to New York Times. Are you kidding me? Anyways. Wow, welcome to Retro WFC. Thank you. Glad to be here, in fact. Let's go, baby. I love this Mario costume. It's so good. What? Will Smith? He doesn't live in Germany. Why are they showing Will Smith in Germany? That's fucked up, I think. I recognize Noah. Anywho. Excuse me? I thought I uninstalled this fucking shit. You know Microsoft Copilot? You know how every single company is shoehorning AI into everything, and the AI is basically like at best it's nothing. It's just there as a marketing gimmick, and at worst it's like actively meant to fucking surveil you or some shit, or like extract wealth from your computer or from artists or whatever by data mining and probably illegally using shit in its database. That's also why everything has a dead economy. Yeah. I opened up Notepad, fucking Notepad, which I use specifically because it's the most basic, like, plain text editing fucking whatever. And I see this dumb fucking Copilot logo in the top right. After I spent, I think, like, an entire week trying to figure out, like, and this was a couple of months ago, so it's not immediately in the past. I spent like a whole week trying to figure out how to uninstall and delete Copilot from my computer, because I don't want that shit. That shit didn't exist when Windows 11 dropped. That shit didn't exist when Windows 10 dropped. I have never needed some fucking Clippy the paperclip Bonzi buddy ass looking son of a bitch telling me what's what on my computer. It's my computer, motherfucker. I've been using it for years, you know? And I definitely don't want you fucking data mining everything I own, everything that's on my computer. And I also don't want you fucking spying on me. I think that's not unreasonable to say. Like, how about Microsoft doesn't fucking peep into my computer as I'm like playing Minecraft or whatever, and they can like see everything that I'm doing. Seriously, they advertise that shit as a feature on like Copilot. It was like, what is it, Rewind or something like that? Copilot Rewind or whatever, where it's like, yeah, Copilot will literally record everything that you do every moment of every day and play it back and be like, hey, here's a review of what you did yesterday. Fucking excuse me? I didn't want that. In fact, I specifically want you not to do that. This one, when the government goes really hard on the opponents, is going to be laser focus if they were competent. Yeah, and luckily for us, the government, if any government that is like insane enough to actually try a mass crackdown on surveillance information that they've gathered, is not competent enough to deliver on that, because like the consequences of a mass surveillance campaign followed by a mass crackdown acting on that surveillance campaign is actually what is it, like, counterproductive. You need a labor force. All dictatorships fundamentally are about hierarchy and power structures, which means that, you know, it's emphasizing the divide between the ruling class, the owning class, and the working class. People can get their pants in a twist for me saying this, but it is always the case that the dictatorship cannot be egalitarian. There's no such thing as an egalitarian dictatorship. It's contradictory to what a dictatorship means. It means that there is a class of people at the top running things, an unelected class of people using authoritarian power to crack down on political dissidents, and primarily members of the lower class or people they view to be threats to them. You know? And by virtue of that power structure, right? The opposite of the cream rising to the top happens. I've described how being a billionaire literally makes you stupider, because being part of an extremely isolated, insular, and increasingly limited ruling class cuts you off from the rest of humanity and makes you dumb because you're cut off from the rest of humanity and incapable of, like, exercising your brain because your whole life gets automated around you. Any government, by virtue of that process, the kind of government that would decide to crack down on that mass surveillance information is not competent enough to do the fucking, like, Orwellian final solution, whatever, where they secure their control for all time and are hyper-focused and laser-focused on punishing political dissidents. You can have a government that's, like, insane and evil, or you can have a government that's rational and competent. The more you have one, the less you can have the other one. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. And that's not to diminish the very real threat of this happening in the near to intermediate future, right? Obviously, like, we've seen we've seen surveillance start to ramp up ever since the Trump administration took power, and especially the follow-up to that surveillance, the crackdowns also increase in the wake of, like, the new directive for ICE to, like, arrest a fucking 1,000 people or deport 1,000 people per day or whatever it is, right? Like, they need to basically just go start black bagging random fuckers. So, you know, that was a little bit of my frustration seeing that Copilot is back on my fucking computer. Very fitting that it is an incompetent surveillance tool built by and for incompetent people. You know, here I am being mad about it because it is both extremely dystopian and, like, incredibly stupid. What is it, like, I don't know if it's, this is exactly the kind of dictatorship, but, like, Kafka-esque dictatorship. I know that's, like, ruled by bureaucracy, everything's bureaucratized, but they're Kafka-esque with respect to a person. You can use that word to describe a person, which means that, like, they're so intolerable that you kind of just can't deal with them and you just passively put up with them, you know? Anyways, I fucking hate Copilot, as well as basically every other AI. For some reason, people treat Cecil from Invincible as the same as Republicans for some reason. I've heard takes like that. Those people are brain dead. It only takes 2 seconds of you analyzing Cecil's character to understand that he is not like the Republicans, not even remotely. Is he an institutional part of what you could consider maybe a neoconservative institution? Yes, but one of the biggest fucking plot points about Cecil, when you start looking at his past, I've started watching Invincible, season 3. I'm only a couple episodes in, but the man believes in reformative justice. You know, unironically, in that debate that he and Invincible have, that argument where they, like, fall out and whatever, spoilers, by the way, they have an argument and stuff, not going to provide too much detail beyond that. Invincible has the more right-wing take, and Cecil is like a woke lefty in that conversation. Yeah, he's still like Mr. Government agent hard-ass about it, but fundamentally he believes, like, no, look, these people are not going to do any good. They're not going to be able to, like, make up for their mistakes in any way if you just put them in a box to rot forever, right? You have to incorporate a way for them to be productive and contribute to society in a way that makes it safer. Yo, what's up, Table? Welcome back. So anybody who looks at Cecil and is like, yep, that guy is a Republican, is dumb. And possibly also a Republican who wants to identify with Cecil because they think he's cool. So they project their own political labels onto him. But, like, a rational analysis of his character includes mention of him being in favor of restorative justice. I need that Mario mod. I can link it. I found it on what is it? TalkDom or whatever. It's on there somewhere. I'll try to find it later. But yeah, it is a sick costume. Yeah, Mario Kart Wiki. Plot that the government and Invincible didn't steal the cloning technology. I don't know what you're talking about. I might not be that far into if that's a thing that happens in season 3. So if that is, then just don't say anything else about it, because right now it's a spoiler that, like, doesn't make sense. So I'd rather keep it that way so I don't know what I'm in for. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, the Mahler twins from season 1, and I think they show up in season 2 as well. Nice. Front run the whole race as Mario on Mach Bike while everyone else is like Funky Kong. Yeah, here, hold on. No. Here, hold on. Custom Mario Kart. No! The infamous crash. Okay, well. That gives me some time, at least. Press A to exit. Okay, I will press A to exit. W crash? Yeah, gets first, game crashes. Does not elaborate. Custom Mario Kart wiki. I'll try to do some looking while I launch the game here. Custom characters. Here, hold on. Mario. Okay, that's a lot of, medium characters. Sort by character. Where's Mario? Here's Mario. Is this the one I'm thinking of? No, it is not. This is a different one. Paint, reflect, shadow. Dang it. Mario Kart Wii. Custom characters. That's not what I wanted, but okay. Main page, I guess? I don't fucking know. Track directory. I load retro rewind through Revo, find it to crash less, but that's just me. Yeah, I don't typically like doing that. Not usually, because the UI in Revolution is a little bit uglier. And I've also haven't had to really do that very much. The one time I tried to do it, when the channel itself was like causing crash to, well, my whole Wii U to crash, Revolution didn't work either. It just froze. So. Individual character vehicle. Wait. No, not individual character. Ah, okay, medium characters. Where's Mario on this list? There it is. Okay. I want to find it. What I thought I remembered it being the custom Mario skin that I use being called Dripped Out Mario, but I don't think that's actually true because I looked at Dripped Out Mario and it was a different thing. So I think it might be called like Hip Hop Mario or something. Fine, I'll try to look at it if you can't find it. Yeah, I would rather find a link than just post the file directly. So yeah. I remember it being surprisingly obscure. Character? No, come on. TalkDom has, like, there's more than... The problem is, right? I'm looking at the TalkDom custom Mario Kart wiki. But the problem is, right? There is more than one page that pertains to custom characters. And it's sending me to the less comprehensive one. Does that make sense? Like the trouble is like there's a different custom character page than the one I'm being sent to repeatedly on TalkDom. And that was where I think I found this category. Take me back to categories. Character edit, maybe? Here, hold on. This is deep dive right now. Mario... Streetwear? Wait a minute. Yes, I found it. Let's fucking go. Okay, here it is. It's called Streetwear Mario. I'm looking at it in the chat. There you go. Anybody who is watching the stream, pause this video, zoom in on chat, whatever you need to do. That is the custom Mario skin that I use, and it's fucking sick. It's called Streetwear Mario. Now let's go back in. Big fan of streetwear. I think it looks cool. Nice. I use the running Luigi mod. Oh, the one where he's running and he's not even on a bike. That one's really funny. The last time I saw it, God, this was years ago. It's crazy to think that 2021 was 4 years ago. But I remember in 2021, there was like a vehicle... It was either a vehicle clan war video or it was just a funny haha video where it was like sheeps versus cows or something. And Troy and all the other people in his Discord had installed a mod that changed a certain character vehicle combo to be like the cow running, and then another one was changed to be like the sheep running. And so the whole room, the whole like custom track room, why is Mario T-posing? They don't have a proper animation for the character select screen. So on the select screen, he's just T-posing. But in-game, he's doing his thing properly. Yeah, oh yeah, okay, yeah, not sheep. Cow versus goat. I was close to it. They both produce cheese and both go bad. Yeah. And so that's the video I remember of that. And since then, I guess it became like a little bit of a thing, like a funny haha meme in the modding scene to make a character skin or character vehicle skin, where it was like, I eliminated the vehicle, so now it's just this model of this character or whatever, and they're running. They're like on foot at 80 kilometers per hour. It's like, great, thank you. But, like, unironically. You know, I'll say, great, thank you, very cool, when some dystopian shit happens, but, like, this time I actually mean it. Because, it's funny. Also, this person is carding on Bowser's Castle Wii, which is more balls than I have. Except for during that one challenge. So incompetent feels like Cyberpunk is going to happen? Yeah. Are you in regular worldwide or retro worldwide? I'm in retro worldwide right now. So I have is the regular 32 as well as all the retro custom tracks. Sorry. Oh, it feels like Cyberpunk is not going to happen. I think that there are some things that a Cyberpunk archetype of world gets wrong. For example, oh, you're in? Hackers hate him. The notion that the like corporate magnates or whatever would be fighting each other with private militaries is not exactly true, but there is a version of that is the case, right? So the ruling class, the owning class, you know, like how they all have the fucking giant business empires or whatever, they have class solidarity, which means when it comes to guarding their class interests, they will all act to do that, right? When it is them versus the working class, they will all act in lockstep, more or less, right? That's class solidarity. But outside of that, they do not have solidarity with one another. There is no interpersonal solidarity or social solidarity there. Basically what I'm saying is outside of the class war, where they unify as a class front, they fucking hate each other's guts. Like, all the oligarchs fucking hate each other. So they're constantly trying to undercut each other's businesses. This doesn't usually happen by way of armed force. It's usually like backroom dealings and like he said, she said, tee hee hee on social media and shit. And like on TV interviews and whatever. It's like basically, have you ever had like a toxic, have you ever been in like a really toxic relationship with a like an abusive partner or whatever, and they're just they're just a really messy bitch, right? That's what all billionaires are like to each other all the time, you know? You ever watch Mia where if you rewatch it, you realize the main character is a complete jerk? I feel like I know what you're talking about, but I haven't necessarily watched anything like that to my knowledge. Maybe it's just that the stuff that I have watched that's like that, I haven't like rewatched or anything, but yeah. Like Elon Musk existing is abusive. I never even met her. Oh yeah, Elon Musk, 100% abusive piece of shit human being. On top of also being a Nazi, like deadbeat dad, like disowned his own daughter for being trans, then proceeded to whine about it on the news, and that sort of shit, you know. And he's on the incompetent end of things, right? Like, understand that like other billionaires are still extremely petty, but like more so directed towards other billionaires than Elon Musk. And then obviously all of them, by virtue of being billionaires, are extremely abusive to the societies that they interact with and like leech off of, right? Oh boy. And look at your boy stealing first place. Hard part about media and stuff is paid for by billionaires. Everything is and isn't paid for by billionaires. That's just the nature of how a global interconnected economy works, right? It's like how you're gonna top 2 and then I hit a red shell. Ah, that guy. Yeah, I think I saw the red shell you were talking about. It's like how people on the right, this is actually a good example of what I'm talking about. People on the right will say like Soros funded. First of all, first and foremost, just because they hate Jews. But then also it's a convenient wedge to try to rhetorically delegitimize any sort of remotely liberal or left-leaning movement and whatever. Back when they were still rhetorically concerned about like convincing anybody of anything. But the truth of the matter is, right, since George Soros is a billionaire, to use him as an example, he has money everywhere. And there are, like, foundations connected to him, there are charities connected to the foundations, and there are things connected to the charities, and the this, and the blah, 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 blah. And he's not, like, personally donating that money to all these left-wing causes and whatever. He's been like, oh, yeah, you know, maybe we'll put some in this foundation and this and whatever, and I'll get a tax write-off, you know, like every billionaire does. Those foundations and those charities then are just interacting with a bunch of other foundations, charities, and nonprofits and whatever. And as a result, eventually there are some groups and like community orgs that get that money. So then like there is a lot of stuff that you can be like, oh my god, George Soros funded this, by which I mean there are some foundations that George Soros has donated like $10,000 to one time or two that also ended up working with this progressive org at a local level. You know, and a similar thing applies to other billionaires, sometimes directly in the case of anything airing on Amazon. For example, I think Invincible is on Amazon Prime, which is Amazon owned by Jeff Bezos. Or it could be indirect. It could be like, you know, it could be like a nonprofit that gets funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And then that nonprofit disperses some money to like a local community, and then that local community has some money to spend on whatever, right? but ultimately, in either case, it is still part of that system, which is a problem. And yes, it is also part of that recuperation cycle by which capital tries, and sometimes is very successful in absorbing critiques of itself into itself. There's more thinking they could be too critical of the system, or they wouldn't fund the media. Oh yeah. Yeah, increasingly lately that you run the risk of that. We've started to see the first degree of that happening, where Jeff Bezos straight up said, like, yeah, if you're not a free market fundamentalist, you're literally not allowed to write for the Washington Post. That's policy at the Washington Post now. It is a free market libertarian rag, because Jeff Bezos decided that it was supposed to be that. And he owns it. He has completely unchecked, control over it. And this happens in Hollywood all the time, where movies sometimes will get kneecapped the more they're integrated into the systems of Hollywood, if they have any sort of class critique, because, you know, the investors and the fucking studio executives are not part of the class of not part of the working class, which is usually what class critique is supposed to be sympathetic to. I don't think I take your meaning with that one. I don't know. Autocorrect might have murdered that sentence a little bit. Last sentence is a little butchered. Yeah. Oh, you mean like the Hollywood always talking about media? Yeah, but the both sidesing like anytime they make a villain that like has some sort of approximating a left-wing class-conscious like ideology or whatever, and then they're like, now hold on, you know, you it might be a valid criticism, but you've gone too far. Yeah, Hollywood is really fond of doing that. And it is a part of manufacturing that consent in the audience. Yes, that like that's why they do that, because Hollywood is part of the political media cycle. You know, politics is present in the art that we watch, in products that we consume, and whatever. And so the studio executives are also similarly anxious to feel like they're justified in sitting atop this pyramid here. So they don't usually take too kindly to any message that suggests otherwise, you know? Not just because it attacks their own insecurities, but because it could potentially convince somebody else of the same. Of like, well, hey, hang on a minute. You know, do the studio execs really deserve to get fucking $1 million squadrillion per minute? Like, I don't think that's right. Oh yeah, that's true. And the far right also will flip a shit whenever the villain is also like openly on the far right. I mean, that's one of the reasons they hate art, right? The whole political identity of the far right is we fucking hate everybody, including ourselves, but especially immigrants and Jews and etc. You know. That shock actually came at a pretty good time, I think. Nice. Second place. How's your local state being affected by what's happening? I still feel like I'm in a calm before the storm type of situation. I haven't visibly seen a lot of the consequences of this stuff yet. But it's not good. Virginia is one of those states that was already in a pretty rough spot with respect to affordable housing. We're I think this is one of the states that was potentially looking to expand public transit and like Amtrak rail infrastructure, but now with the Department of Transportation actually cracking down on public transit projects, it's less like. I think the first thing that's going to happen is, you know, obviously things getting worse, but also good things not happening anymore. Does that make sense? Like, even what small procedural good could come from, you know, people understanding how to navigate a neoliberal system is going to stop happening, specifically because the administration has, like, made it their political mission to make that stuff not happen. You know? Hence, you know, public transit. I'm kind of out of the education system now, so I don't like interact with it as much, but I expect those educational outcomes to decline precipitously. And since Virginia is also home to some port cities and stuff, I wouldn't be surprised if the longshoremen started like shitting a brick over the tariffs and stuff like that. But there's also like a lot of military industrial complex stuff here. I don't know. The fallout is going to be very complicated. Oh, I'm so good. Look at that. It's like we're talking about Ragnarok? Yeah. Oh, no! Dang. I was actually, every time I go into that jump, I'm afraid of that specific thing happening. I think that's one of the most difficult parts of Rainbow Road, is if you know kind of like what you're supposed to do on that jump, getting it right is really hard. Okay. Not taking that this time. Oh, okay. Those mushrooms are a trap, I think. Imagine one of the economic characters, a YouTuber, saying first day of government failure. What? Economic character? I don't quite know what you mean by that. Oh, there goes that guy. Poor bastard. I'm gonna get big here? Yep. No, like, the first part of the sentence, what I don't get. Anyway. Speaking of economic failure, you know, there's no shortage of that going around. But there's one thing I wanted to talk about that actually is like, it's actually like society collapsing levels of bad, precisely because of how immediate it is to what people do like day to day. So everybody knows this. We have a debt economy. People have credit cards. People go into debt regularly for shit. Nobody can afford anything. Everybody's probably buried in debt. Nobody can afford housing. Nobody can afford fucking utilities and whatever. Nobody can afford their fucking car. It's bad. And it's getting worse. It's getting a lot worse. Here, let me just cut to the chase. From Newsweek, this was actually an oddly good bit of framing that I saw. DoorDash payment plan could make Americans' debt crisis even worse. There's a new app or whatever, or like new thing that corpos are having fun doing right now, where you can finance a pizza. Like if you're ordering a pizza, there's this app that is partnering with DoorDash in America to be like, hey, yeah, you can and by the way, DoorDash already being a fucking third party like ordering service where like they charge you exorbitantly more money than the food is actually worth, so you end up paying like $40 for some fucking takeout or whatever. This partnership is like, hey, yeah, what if in addition to that, we also made it so that instead of paying for your food all at once, like a fucking normal person, like you go to the grocery store or you get your groceries delivered or whatever, and you pay for the groceries, what if we made it so that you can put it on a balance and whatever, and pay it off like you would pay for a goddamn mortgage or like car payments? What if we did that, but for food? It's such a naked debt trap. It's genuinely insane to me that they like. It's insane to me that exists, and like, but what's more insane is that they're just getting away with it. Yeah, I didn't really like DoorDash very much either, precisely because of the way that it just like charged you so much extra for shit. But yeah, now they're taking advantage of people who don't have that much money to charge them even more. There are some really fucking nasty, like shady incentive structures on this app. I don't remember what it's called. I'll have to look at it in a second. Where it's like, yeah, technically you could either pay for it all at once or finance it over the course of a week. But they keep kind of like nudging you in the direction of paying it off over several months for like a fucking cheeseburger or something, mind you. Because if you pay it off over 6 months or more, then you accrue interest, and that means you go further into debt. Yeah, you just drive. If you're gonna order out, you just go out to order. You know, like, to avoid this shit. Like, if on an individual level, my advice is avoid that shit like the plague. But yeah, okay, Klarna. It's called Klarna. A new fancy phone app to put you further in debt. DoorDash is facing some backlash after partnering with a buy now, pay later payment program. This is literally like the most predatory model of fucking lending money to people that the world has ever seen. See also payday loans, where it's like, oh, you're short on money because you don't get paid enough. That's okay. Here, you can borrow $10,000 that accrues 10% interest every month. You know? It's designed to keep you in debt. Anyways. A buy now, pay later program that some say could increase debt for millions of Americans. Some detractors from this innovative new program are saying, why the fuck would you do this? This is making the whole last debt economy even worse. The food delivery platform announced its partnership with AI-powered payment network. Wow, of course, it had to be AI also, because it wasn't demonic enough. Klarna on Thursday, which will allow DoorDash users to order food and pay for it in multiple installments. Dog, just put the pizza in the box. Just give me the pizza. I'll pay the $20. Like, come on. AI is so sketchy. Yeah, I talked about that earlier, where they're like, the fucking corpos are shoehorning it into everything, and at best it's like, stealing data to be used in a like generative database, and at worst it's like surveilling you to harvest your data specifically so that they can do God knows what with it, you know? Like, fucking do targeted ads or whatever, and more of that, like, scummy-ass incentive farming, or sell it to the government, better yet, to fucking get your ass disappeared. Because, you know, remember, the U.S. government buys data from a lot of these companies. They don't surveil us directly sometimes. There's a lot of surveillance from the U.S. government. But sometimes they actually outsource their surveillance to the private sector and just buy that shit later. Ah, you thought you were gonna get me, you chuckle fucks back there. I force you to do this thing in the future. Just learn how to grow plants. Yeah, it really does seem like with the introduction of this is too lucrative from a business perspective with these fucking with the like investors that are pitching this. This is too like lucrative. It's a combination of like credit cards and payday loans. To me, at least, that's what it seems like. For them to not like go all in on it. I expect this to become more and more widespread as time went on. Already in the early 2020s, like 2020, 2021, about the time that I was actually buying computer parts and stuff. You know, I started doing a little bit more shopping online, as did probably everybody because of the pandemic. I started to notice sometimes on Amazon or Newegg or wherever I was buying shit from, there would be a little financing option where if you're fucking insane, you can like, oh, hey, pay for it in 4 easy installments to be paid off weekly or monthly, you know? And the fucking thing they're talking about is like $50, you know? It's just an extension. It's an extension of that, but now it has the institutional capture necessary to accelerate the debt crisis to actually untold levels. Yeah, I can't wait until high school debt. Yeah. People already have debt in K-12 education. Remember, the United States is currently, this gets drowned out by the rest of the debt crisis. The United States has been facing a school lunch debt crisis. Children are going into debt over not being able to afford lunch at school. Their kids are racking up debt, or their parents on their behalf are racking up debt just to eat lunch at school. Because school lunch isn't free in America. Unless you're in Minnesota, in which case Comrade Walls has your back. Oh, you meant like for everybody. Yeah, there are some high schools, like private schools, where you have to pay tuition fees, but because K-12 education is free at the point of service, because it's paid for by taxes and shit, you don't have to pay money to like go to school physically. You know, you might have to buy school supplies and stuff like that, but it doesn't like straight up cost money to go to school. Trump happened to get rid of that? No, what he got rid of was the Federal Department of Education. Remember, a lot of education is handled at the state level. And as per the Education Act of 1834, we have a taxpayer-funded kindergarten to 12th grade education system. The difference is, now that the Department of Ed is gone, the funding for that is going to be significantly reduced. And it's mostly going to be handled by any individual state. Public education funding, as well as coming from the federal government, comes from the individual states. So like for the Alaska public school system, or the Virginia public school system, or whatever state's public school system, they have state money that they use for that, in addition to federal money that they will now no longer get because the Department of Education is gone at the federal level. There are still state departments for that. It's only a matter of time before they destroy that. Yeah, I have a feeling that for stuff like K-12 education, if they get around to it, which I assume they will, they're probably going to lean further and further into career and technical ed as a method to get people indebted to private corporations early. Or it's possible they will also like privatize other elements of school to try to integrate people into the debt economy early that way as well. So like, already people have to pay for school lunch and school supplies. It wouldn't surprise me if there were also start to be other things that they had to pay for, like gym uniforms or something like that, you know? Like, when I was at school, we got our gym uniforms. You know, you go to gym class or whatever. And this was, like, 7 or 8 years ago. But, like, when I was at school, we got the gym uniforms just for free. What is happening? What is my computer doing? Hello? Task manager, where are you at? I think I froze for a second. My whole computer jittered and froze for a second. I don't know what's going on. There you go. Yeah. Honestly, I actually think this is a product of me recording locally. This might be why I don't record locally. Okay, good. I'm back. But yeah, as I was saying, that like they're probably going to introduce privatization for other stuff in the K-12 education system. Like I said, one thing that comes to mind is gym uniforms. I got my gym uniform for free when I was doing gym class in school like 10 years ago. Actually more than that, 11, 12 years ago. But that might not remain that way forever. Imagine if each individual class was like a paid subscription. I mean, Trump is introducing the concept of a gold card, you know, like in juxtaposition to a green card. So, you know, they are going to try to introduce that to as many things as possible. But anyways, I feel like I've gotten off track a little bit from what I was originally talking about, which is Klarna. This is a classic, actually, like Huxleyan dictatorship thing. Where you have an overwhelming preponderance of choices, but they're all illusory because all of them lead to you being like in debt or something, and they're all backed with the implicit violence that like if you don't pay your debt, then somebody comes to like break your kneecaps or something. Damn, that toad is going off right now. Oh, I can take that turn so tight because I'm on the mock bike. Same with this one. Look at that. Ooh. That's good. How the fuck do you do that? I don't know how you do that. I also think I am probably going to... After this stream, I'm going to stop locally recording the stuff because it's taking... It's actually taking, like, too much of my computer. I don't want to have these kinds of freezes again. It's already lap 3. Once the race is done, I'll pull up that Newsweek article again so I can look at the details of this fucking Klarna thing. Local recording? Yeah, so what I used to do for OBS was I wouldn't record at the same time that I was streaming. I would just stream, and then if I wanted to make a video out of something, I would download the VOD from Twitch. So that would give me an MP4 file without me having to spend extra resources on my computer recording it as I was streaming at the same time. Right now, I'm both streaming and recording. But you probably noticed earlier that was weighing down my computer quite a bit. Anywho. Back to Newsweek. Okay. Newsweek spoke to experts about the matter from the perspective of DoorDash and its customers. Why it matters. Americans hold more than $18 trillion in credit card debt, according to the Federal Reserve. Guys, that's 60% of America's entire GDP. America's GDP is $30 trillion. And the total amount of credit card debt in America is $18 trillion. If you subtracted the credit card debt from the American GDP, you would have less than half of the American GDP left. That's how bad. Just credit card debt, by the way. This doesn't count medical debt that is not in the form of credit card debt. This doesn't count, like, mortgages that aren't on credit cards. It doesn't count for, like, any sort of debt outside of that is not included. That's just credit cards. You know? According to the Federal Reserve. Okay, so that's a Fed statistic, and federal government tends to keep pretty good track of those things, at least. While pay later platforms like Klarna offer added flexibility. Why would you need added flexibility for buying a fucking sandwich or buying your groceries? You go there, you buy the groceries. As much as we talk about how, like, nobody can afford anything, groceries are on the less expensive end of, like, things that you could buy. You know? Like, it ain't that deep. For consumers making purchases who may not have the bandwidth to pay with their debit card at the moment, some finance experts caution against using these types of platforms due to the risks to your bank account balance later on. Yeah, no shit. The whole concept of paying for something in installments is just a debt trap. Because think about it. Why would you ever feel the need to pay for something in installments unless you didn't have the money to pay for it up front? And you're not going to get the money if that's just an avenue to drain people of money more and more and more. Like, that's all that it is. You know? The only people who would do this are people who already don't have enough money to buy shit. Which means they're going to get further in debt because, you know, buying shit with money you don't have isn't going to make you any wealthier. Within hours of them announcing their partnership on Thursday, social media users were criticizing the decision due to larger financial concerns. And here's where they quote some, like, random Twitter users, but I'll read it out because it's funny. We should make debt illegal. Debt as a concept is really complicated, but this shit needs to be, like, you need to bring the banhammer down quick on shit like this. Like, I actually believe that credit cards and fucking financing a pizza and, like, 30-year mortgages, shit that's designed to put you in debt for a long-ass time, should just be illegal. Like, you should not be allowed to do that. You know? Because understand that all that does is it creates the illusion of people having more money than they actually have. That Toad's a live streamer? Oh, really? How about that? You know, all of the like the 30-year mortgages, the 20 whatever years mortgages, the fucking credit card debt, the goddamn finance your pizza, finance your graphics card today, shit. All that serves to do is like basically forestall the inevitable. If you don't have that, right, then the affordability crisis gets solved quicker because people realize that it exists more quickly, right? In an economy like this, if you run into, like, a problem where now you have zero money, no problem. You can always just go into negative money, which then makes the crisis of debt all that much worse because now there's, like, a lot of money being generated that is contingent on people having debt, on negative money existing. That only creates a bubble that's eventually going to pop when people start coming to collect and people don't have the money to pay up because they never did. That's why they went into debt in the first place. You want to make debt not very accessible. That's like the worst possible version of the crisis that we could see. Whereas in an economy that isn't a debt economy, when somebody hits zero money, they hit zero money. Like, you don't go into debt. And while an affordability crisis still theoretically happens, it happens at a time when, you know, there's not, like, a significant amount of the economy that's been constructed as a bubble out of everybody's collective debts. Does that make sense? Like it's almost like you got a bad cut. you got a bad cut, right? And you're not in good shape, but you don't have bandages, right? That's like having zero money. But what you can do is forestall the need to actually address the cut by just continually using like painkillers and stuff, right? And so instead of actually providing comprehensive medical treatment, you just get painkillers over and over and over and over again while the cut festers and gets infected, and it's not being fixed because you have the money. Like, you can get painkillers, but you can't get bandages and like proper medical treatment and whatever. And the scar never heals. It just gets worse and worse, right? That's the kind of dynamic we're talking about. The debt is festering and accumulating because it's just being perpetuated. There's just more and more and more debt, and that's going to make everything worse. And it is already making everything worse. Sorry, this leftist meme, I know. Anyways, let's hear what random Twitter users have to say about fucking debt traps. If you need a payment plan to use DoorDash, you might want to get off your lazy ass and just go pick up your goddamn food yourself. Not a political solution, but I do agree. You know, if this is the direction that DoorDash is going, just don't DoorDash. Not a good idea. Another random Twitter user said, nobody should ever pay for installments on DoorDash. I'm noticing a distinct lack of systemic analysis of the issue so far. Okay, here's somebody who's just a moron and was quoted by Newsweek precisely because they were a moron, and this avoids systemic critique. If you're financing DoorDash deliveries, you're not living paycheck to paycheck, you're just a moron. More than one thing can be true at the same time. If you are in a position to finance DoorDash, if you're in a position where you're like financing that shit, you are living paycheck to paycheck. Most people in the United States are pretty damn poor. You know, this person just loves to, whoever this person is, they just hate poor people. That's it. I guess I don't know what I expected from fucking Twitter users, particularly those quoted by Newsweek. I guess they can't go too far into acknowledging, wow, this is actually fucking heinous and monstrous creating a debt trap like this without offending, you know, their corporate daddies or whatever. If everyone falls for it, they'll just make it expensive, so you have to do it. Yeah, that's what happened with housing. Housing in the United States is part of this debt trap, where like it'll cost several $100,000 for a house. People don't have that kind of money, you know. Even people who've been saving up for a long time don't have that kind of money. Nobody can really pay for a house up front anymore unless you're so wealthy that the system is already designed to benefit you. So what happens? Well, the economic activity must keep churning, and we don't want to address the affordability crisis, because if we do that, we put more wealth into people's pockets, and if we put more wealth into people's pockets on like an average person sort of level, then the rich aren't accumulating wealth. So let's just make it easier for people to accumulate debt, you know? And that's how you get everybody like taking out a mortgage for their house, you know? We've just gotten used to that part. And that's permitted houses to get more and more expensive. That's one thing as well. Because you only have to put like 10 to 20% down on a house, you only have to be able to come up with like $50,000 or you know, to $20,000 to $50,000, which already is like something that most people have to go into debt for. And then the rest of it is like an abstracted sort of pay later, right? And that allows housing to just continually get more expensive because it's like, oh, well, I can just pay that later. You can't really. Nobody can pay that off, but that's the design. That's like what it's designed to make people feel, you know? And that perpetuates it more and more and more. And if that debt structure didn't exist, people would fucking notice really, really fast when you couldn't afford a house. Because the concept of going into debt itself would be toxic. You'd be like, whoa, 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 whoa. You're telling me I have to go into debt for this? I'm not ready for that. But debt is so integrated into our lives already that it's like, it's just, everything just gets worse as a result. Newsweek reached out to DoorDash for comment via email. DoorDash and Klarna have responded to pushback by outlining how the Klarna buy now, pay later option can actually prevent debt rather than add to it. Me when I fucking lie, me when I am like, that's explicitly the opposite purpose of a financing plan. Literally the only reason that paying in installments for something exists is for interest to accumulate on debt. Because think about it. Just the very act of paying in installments itself is a form of debt. Let's say there's a graphics card that costs $500, right? And you're buying it for a new computer. Most people don't have $500 to spend even. But maybe you do, maybe you can save up $125 to spend. So you spend $125 as a down payment on your graphics card. You get the graphics card, great. You still owe them $375. So now, even if interest doesn't necessarily accrue on the next several installments, congratulations, you've taken on $300 of debt or more, right? Like, that's what paying in installments means. It means you take on debt in the short term to have something now. You know? That's what paying later means. Paying later is the definition of debt. This is some Orwellian shit. It's like them saying, "Oh yeah, this is the Ministry of like customer support," and by customer support we mean like telling you to finance everything in installments so that you get put further and further in debt. You know? It's the illusion of cheapness. Yeah, and that's how the American economy has been chugging for so long. That's why this is only coming to a head just now. People ran out of money for shit in the 70s. You know? That's when all this shit kicked off. Like credit cards and mortgages and whatnot. Like, that started really ramping up in the 70s and 80s. It's been 50 years already of this debt crisis brewing and festering and, like, getting ready to come back and bite us all in the ass. And now here it is. Now everything is a financing plan. Now everything is just, oh yeah, go into debt for this, go into debt for this, go into debt for this. You know? My mom died with lots of debt. So did my grandmother. And they still call us about it. You know, it's actually not legal to try to collect debt from somebody's kids, right? This isn't one of those shit-ass systems where, like, a debt is actually transferred down from a parent to their kids. Like, when you die, your debts are cleared. Like, that's it. You know, they can't go fucking harassing your kids. But they do anyway. You know? Like, we get a number of calls, or at least we used to. I don't think we get them anymore. Like, myself, my mom, my dad, we'd get a number of calls about, like, some fucker asking about, like, outstanding debts that my grandmother had, or whatever. And it's just like, dog, they know they're full of shit. They know that they can't collect on that. They're not legally allowed to collect on that. Imagine if the Republicans add that to the law. I wouldn't be surprised. I would not even remotely be surprised if they start doing that. The rational part of me knows that it would be so disastrous that they would never, like, were it not for how fucking incompetent the Democrats are, this would single-handedly torpedo the Republicans' chances of doing anything meaningful ever. But the Republicans are not a rational political party. They are not acting rationally. So, you know, like, you can just see the way that they're reacting to their own constituents. It wouldn't surprise me that hard if Republicans decided to, like, start fucking adding debt to everybody's tab by way of saying, oh yeah, by the way, you know how your dead parents or whatever had debt? Now they can go hound you for it. You know? Because people have an IQ of room temperature. That may be true. But people also know when their toes directly are being stepped on. A lot of the constituency that supports the Republican Party are veterans and old people. Who do you think is going to be most affected by cutting stuff like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and veterans benefits, right? I'm talking about Republicans. Oh, like the politicians? Yes, they all, like, no caveats to add there. They do just have the IQ of, like, room temperature. Like, all just profoundly dumb. Also, this track is fun. I didn't get the trick there. This is a really good, this is another really good first attempt custom track. I think that, like, there's some polish that could be put onto this, but I really like this interpretation of, Wario, what is it? Fucking Wario Ski Mountain or something. I don't remember what it's called. Mount Wario. Feels like for Christmas we're just gonna get a bloody day. Oh. I don't know. I don't know. I'm taking forever to read that article, I'll be real. I haven't been able to go through it so much. Oh no! That was a good bomb. What the f... Okay, this part of the track might also need a little bit of work. Maybe. We'll see. I have to use this here. This is not a good place to use it, but hopefully I will be able to reach the item boxes. Yes. So many poor people are going to die when they try to go after the rich. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, right? It's like there's like a tipping point. There's going to be a tipping point where it's like, how much do you have to lose, really? You know? That's what creates revolutions. When people are desperate enough that, like, look, no matter how bad this goes, letting the status quo continue is just worse. You know? There you go. Yeah, Klarna offers interest-free pay in full or pay in 4 option on DoorDash that can apply to takeout, groceries, and more. And this is after DoorDash had achieved like a massive like market capture. Like DoorDash has captured a massive amount of the market. Wow, I love that they're only exclusively, like, quoting fucking CEOs and capitalists and shit. Anyways. Yeah, there's I think I remember from other articles that, like, even though they technically have, Klarna technically has an option that you can pay just upfront in full, like a normal fucking person, they, like, hide it under a bunch of stuff. It's like how those predatory subscription services will literally, like, hide and obscure the unsubscribe button, and even when you find the unsubscribe button, they will use that, like, confusing ass language, or at least they used to before Joe Biden's America. One of the good things that, like, the FTC did is they removed that, you know, in an effort to, like, literally keep old people roped into subscriptions they didn't want and stuff like that. They do, Klarna does the same thing. God, it's like, name a scummy business practice, and Klarna, has it in their fucking, pay for your DoorDash in 4 easy installments thing, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, technically you can pay in full, but it's like, it's like the Nazi voting ballot, where it's like, well, you vote for Hitler, and then the Ja is just really, really big, and then the Nein, the no option, is really small and, like, in the corner. But, like, even worse than that. It's, like, hard to see, you can't, like, you have to go through a bunch of different checkboxes to find it, or some shit like that. Like, Viltrumite say have infinite power. Don't be so sure. Having a lot of wealth doesn't necessarily equate to having infinite power, right? Wealth can buy political influence and political power, right? But there's one kind of power that wealth actually cannot buy, and that's people power. Wealth has a really, really hard time getting the people power to be on its side. The best they can do is break up people power so that it, instead of them having it on their side, it just straight up doesn't exist, you know? Wealth can support people power where it already exists, but they can't wield it, really. If that makes sense. If I was a stupid voter, I'd probably just speak smaller for less effort, to be honest. Feels like the worker revolution feels like a fantasy. Look, revolutions are complicated, and the media apparatus is like very invested in people thinking that like any substantial change for the better is fantastical, right? Revolutions in reality aren't necessarily a single, climactic event the way we tend to remember them, right? It's a very complex series of grassroots movements that become steadily more active as time goes on and steadily more hostile to an ever more like inhumane status quo, right? We're already watching the revolution take place, the rift between the establishment wings of the party and their grassroots constituencies, the vocal revolt between the constituencies in both parties at their town halls and stuff, These are the hallmarks of an early stage revolution. We're watching it unfold. It might not be a violent revolution, but nonetheless, it is the beginnings of a revolution. The anti-oligarchy tour as well. Bernie Sanders and AOC have been going around the country amassing tens of thousands of people at each rally they do, whether they're in like the Great Plains or in a big city or wherever they are. People want a message. They want a revolutionary message, and there are progressives willing to provide that, and people will all too happily turn out for it. Worst case scenario, the rich just leave the country. Maybe. I have a feeling my man Trotsky has something to say about that beyond the grave when we do the global workers' revolution, right? But Pepe posting aside, the point of a revolution like this is that it wouldn't matter if rich people leave the country, right? Part of what enables them to stay rich is that their wealth isn't in the country. Their wealth isn't technically in any country at all. It is subject to a different set of rules and laws. It is hidden. Part of a progressive like economic revolution such as this is redistributing that wealth. I've said this before, and I meant it then and I mean it now. In a workers' revolution, like a socialist revolution, nobody actually has to die or be killed. It does, like, you don't have to go and kill Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and whoever else. As much as many of us probably would like to, you don't have to do that. That is not in any way a necessary part of this. And the other side of them having their wealth already in different countries is that what I was trying to say is it won't matter if they leave the country because their wealth can be redistributed whether they're here or not. Like if governments figure out how to get a hold of that offshore wealth, they could be here, they could be in China, they could be in Macau, they could be in fucking Taiwan, they could be in like Libya, they could be in Britain. It wouldn't matter because their wealth is gone. They don't like physically have bundles of cash or whatever on them. It's all like digitally and virtually stored in offshore accounts exempt from taxes. The moment it's no longer exempt from taxes and stuff, they don't have that wealth anymore. And then we use other countries to take us down. What? Oh, to take the US down or whatever. What? My drift didn't come out, so I can't take the same. Dang it. I hate when that happens. I get wheelie locked for the dumbest reason, because my my controller doesn't quite register the R press. The we with they. Oh, okay. They use other countries to take us down. Possibly, but other countries are not quite as are like not as captured as the United States. They would have to engage in that project for a very long time. And if circumstances get to a point, right, where the rich are literally fleeing the United States to not have their wealth redistributed, they could not organize a counter move quick enough to outstrip an advancing progressive movement, right? Like once they're done, they're done. And of course, I'm talking about this as if it's some sort of guaranteed outcome. The timetables here are very wonky. I have no idea at what time scale this is going to happen. But all I know is that this is the beginning stage of a revolution, and this is typically the time when billionaires are the most desperate to both justify their standing and pacify the masses. When the writing starts to be etched on the wall. Does that make sense? Wealth gives a lot of people a lot of opportunities. Yeah. So imagine what a well-organized working class could do if there was finally a downward redistribution of that wealth. Remember, the whole lot of wealth giving people a lot of opportunities, they've had all the wealth this whole time. What I'm describing is them finally starting to lose that wealth. That point works in our favor. It like finally starts to work in our favor if things ever, if a progressive movement ever advances enough that capital starts to flee to other countries that are more likely to be tax havens for them. The reason they would be fleeing is because comparatively the working class now has more wealth and thus more opportunity and thus more power, right? It's a snowball effect. And they've been trying to prevent that from happening. In a way, even though like this seems like a Sisyphean task to us, it's also a Sisyphean task to the owning class, right? Because they know that like they're constantly fighting against the realization of working class power and all of that shit. And the best they can do is forestall it by a few decades each time. You know? But eventually the chickens are going to come home to roost. I don't know how eventually that is, but, you know, revolutions like this have happened before, and they'll happen again. For one time that zombies are the fear of the poor, vampires fear of the rich. That's not entirely false, but I think zombies that could be like much more correct than vampires. But I think vampires fundamentally represent like a repressed fear of sexuality more than anything. Like, sure, vampires are represented as being very stylish and whatever, but I think there's a lot of sex appeal written into the character of how vampires work and all that. Does that make sense? And I got first. They have mansions, they have lots of connections. Oh yeah, the class element is there. I think I prefer to think of them though as like sex symbols. You know? Because of all of the essential components of vampires having to do with being nocturnal, biting your neck, all of the fact that they can't actually turn you into a vampire without your consent, you know? The fact that you have to let them in order to do their thing. That's how they're portrayed in Rule 34. That's also the origins of what vampires are, is that somebody in the Middle Ages probably got a hickey and had to explain it to their parents. Like, oh yeah, it was a vicious blood-sucking beast. Yeah, that's what it was. Anywho, what was this? What was I saying? Oh yeah, this Newsweek article. There actually might be some interesting takes here quoted from Newsweek. I know they usually quote from the very stuffy like owning class side of things. You talk about the zombie one? Yeah, in just a second. There were two quotes that I want to read from this Newsweek article, and then we can talk about zombies and stuff. That'd be fun. Let's see. Alex Beam, financial literacy instructor at the University of Tennessee at Martin, told Newsweek. Okay, so this is a professor. It's easy to see why partnerships like like the one between DoorDash and Klarna, jump out at or customers, excuse me. I guess you could use the two interchangeably, but whatever. While relationships between major retailers and financial services are nothing new, consumers are used to seeing these in the form of store credit cards for multiple purchases for frequent customers or easy payments for large purchases. Okay, where's he going with this? Past reports have estimated the average DoorDash order to be somewhere between $30 to $40, though. When you see financing being pushed for smaller purchases, it raises a financial red flag that customers who are already tapped out are being encouraged to use debt products for buying items they shouldn't have to seek financing for every day. Yeah, so this guy made the exact point that I was saying, that like financing for much smaller purchases only serves as a debt trap. Like that's what's being created here very blatantly, you know? And credit cards were already a pretty heinous debt trap. This is just worse, you know? It's like 2 layers of debt, right? Because you like think about using a credit card that's already going into debt, and then now you're using your debt machine to take on a different kind of debt, and you like pay off the debt with debt. It's all sorts of fucked up. No, dang. Race like shit because I was trying to read an article at the same time. That's okay though. Yeah, okay. Michael Ryan, a finance expert and founder of MichaelRyanMoney.com. Okay, this guy might be a hack. We'll see. Said, it encourages financing consumable goods that have no lasting value. By the time you make your final payment, that meal was consumed weeks or months ago. This contradicts my fundamental financial wisdom about not financing items with zero residual value. Finance bro ass take. Where he's like, bro, you can't even like make profit off of it later. Yeah, they interviewed how many? Let's see, 1, 2, 3. They interviewed 4 retards and 1 professor, and the professor was like, "Yeah, this is gonna create a debt trap because you're financing $40 worth of food, and the only people who would finance $40 worth of food is somebody who already couldn't afford $40, so it's just gonna make everything worse." This is like society-endingly bad. Like, the debt's starting to pile up to this degree. I wouldn't be surprised if months or years from now, kind of like the fallout that you started to see after the initial rise of credit cards and the prevalence of the debt economy sort of came after that, this is gonna, like, amplify the debt crisis by, like, 10. Precisely because the purchases that you would use credit cards for are about an order of magnitude larger than the purchases you would use this for. Remember, the average DoorDash order, that guy said, was about $30 to $40. A purchase that you would use a credit card for, like a larger purchase, would be like $300 to $400. Like, if you make a grocery run, you live in a decent sized household, you're looking at a couple $100 per month, maybe, you know, which is close to 10 times as much. Maybe not exactly, but you get what I mean. You know, and especially if you know, people use credit cards for purchases like nicer furniture, like home renovations, like all sorts of stuff, right? And that stuff tends to be more expensive, on the order of thousands of dollars. So now we're talking like 2 orders of magnitude separation, which is really not good. How much you want to bet they're trying to spin this right now into the Jewish question? I'm willing to bet that even if they are not 100% intentionally doing that, they are in fact doing that, right? Because anti-Semitism is the stupid man's anti-capitalism. And news outlets like this, because they're funded by capital, they have to avoid that necessary anti-capitalism at all costs, right? Like, who the fuck, like, anybody who looks at this is like, wow, this is a shit-ass idea. You know, the more reactionary types would levy the blame on the consumer or the customer or whatever, and then anybody who has a brain would levy the blame on the fucking companies that are doing this, right? Eventually you sidestep that enough that, like, you know, if you have to, like, create a counter narrative in order to sidestep it, which means eventually there's somebody that you have to blame for this. And if you're not blaming the group responsible, you're scapegoating somebody else, which means, you know, all roads lead to anti-Semitism, or maybe they blame like immigrants for it or something like that. Some kind of equivalent of the Jewish question will eventually be arrived at by the more institutional, like, neoliberal elements of like the news, of media pundits, of whoever, right? Even though the right wing is already really far gone. You know, like, they're already there. It's just taking a minute for the news to catch up. Yeah, you hate to be the Jews at a time like this. Like, why? They just be fucking catching strays for everything, bro. You cannot catch a break, dude. Anywho, I don't know if I want to make that a segment. Maybe I will. It is worth mentioning. This doesn't happen in Europe because I think it's literally illegal in Europe to do this. This kind of like financing plan, this kind of debt trap, I think it is actually against the law in Europe. So it doesn't really happen there, but it's happening here. You should make the thumbnail an expensive pizza. Damn, that would be a good thumbnail. It just says, like, just give me the pizza or something. That'd be good. Anyway, future me, cut it there. Anyways, you wanted to talk about zombies as like a class thing? Yeah, let's talk about the allegory of zombies, right? I never thought about zombies that much, partially because I don't watch a lot of zombie movies. I think I have seen like one. Oh, I know I've seen one. Shaun of the Dead is the one zombie movie that I think I have seen, and I'm a very big fan of Shaun of the Dead. It's part of what they call the Cornetto trilogy. You know, Simon Pegg made a few movies about that. And they all feature, like, the Cornetto ice cream at some point, which is funny. But yeah, you mentioned earlier that, like, zombies can be an allegory for the working class and, like, the poor. And I definitely see that, especially because they are, like, they are associated very frequently with disease and with like a general sense of uncleanness and like infection, almost like being around them too much could infect you, like with their affect, with their condition, you know, or like if you're not careful you'll become one of them, which is similar enough to narratives used about you know, losing all your money. You know, if you're not careful you'll end up like that guy over there, you know, on the garbage truck, even though he probably has union benefits. So he was portrayed as a giant group ruining a perfect community. Yeah, that's an element as well, isn't it? The whole, there is a bit about, bit to be said about how you could see them as an allegory for, like, how gentrifying communities are really, like, reactionary, and how, like, the boomers who only care about their property values are like, no, we don't want the dirty, unwashed poor here. They'll ruin the neighborhood, you know? What's up, Sasuke? Or Sasmk. That's not a U. As much as it looks like a U, that's actually the Greek letter M. No, you're coming with me. Also, they look homeless. That is true as well. It does definitely, like, there could be quite a bit feeding into, like, hatred of the homeless there. As well as, like, frequently in real life, to put it the other way around, instead of, like, comparing zombies to real life, comparing real life to zombies. Sometimes if somebody's, like, really tired or out of it, we'll say that they, like, look like a zombie. Like, if their eyes are bloodshot and they're just kind of like, like, really tired and shit. Which is an affect that you tend to come across more if you're living a very, very stressful life, which happens more if you're poor. Also, they're really, really stupid. Yeah, that too. Yeah, the whole part about zombies, like, it being a brain virus that deactivates the higher functioning areas of your brain, so you just want, like, food, basically. Yeah, wow, there's a lot there, huh? How much of that was intended at the start, I actually don't know, though. That's one interesting thing to think about. The first zombie movie that I think got, like, really, really big, was, like, what was it? It was The Living Dead. It was that movie that's famous for having a black protagonist that was killed by a white lynch mob at the end of the movie. But the thing about it is, like, he's not portrayed as particularly wealthy in that movie. Nobody is, to my knowledge. Like, nothing about that movie in particular screams class conflict. Least of all the white lynch mob that's killing all those zombies afterwards and accidentally shoots a guy that's not a zombie. You know? But it seems like a lot of the tropes of them being, like, next to dead or the reanimated dead and being very dumb and being, like, yeah, more dangerous as a horde than individually, a lot of that lends itself to a sort of a nightmare image of the working class. What's up, Toad? Toad Pit Crew. Nice. Oh, thank fuck he ate that green shell, because I was definitely going to if he didn't. Yeah. Get your kicks in. Plants vs Zombies. Zombies are literally in work clothing. Yeah, that's true. In the PvZ, one of the zombie games that I play, one of my favorites. Love that game, by the way. Very fun puzzle game. You are literally defending your lawn and your residential property from a mass of zombies, all of whom are wearing, like, a pretty simple work jacket, collared shirt, jeans, and a tie. That game is fun as hell, though. I fucking love that game. Although, to be fair to Plants vs. Zombies, it's not like they make Crazy Dave out to be, like, especially wealthy either. He's just in, like, a t-shirt and jeans and is wearing a pot on his head. But there are some elements in there that are either accidental or not that definitely sort of give that impression. I'm almost positive this guy wants to throw a green shell back at me. Okay, he lost his green shells, so we're good, I think. He doesn't have anything. Got him! In before blue shell? Okay, no, I'm good. Let's go, baby. One on one of my fucking favorite tracks in the game. Final boss is a boss. Yeah, that's true. We do call them bosses because they have underlings that presumably have no way to hold the boss accountable. They are presumably there through a sort of raw strongman power and authority, and they, tell the underlings what to do with no recourse, right? And they're big and scary and shit. That's probably why video games are so cathartic. Like, yeah, fuck that. I'm killing this thing that in real life would have all sorts of power over me and anybody else. The boss killing attachment is supposed to be an allegory for workers' mistreatment. If not intentionally, which I think it might, on some level it might be, right? There's almost no world in which there's no connection between the two, right? Like it's like, it doesn't matter whether they intend it or not, subconsciously they know it. It's almost like a Freudian thing. So whether intentionally or not, yes, the concept of a boss in a video game that's much more difficult to defeat than other enemies and presumably has some authority over those enemies is an allegory for hierarchy in the real world and the, you know, the mistreatment of people that would lead to an oppositional relationship like that. Yeah, it's there's no such thing as apolitical art. You know, even if the author of a certain piece of media intended for something to be quote unquote apolitical, first of all, you're an artist, nothing is apolitical. And then second of all, death of the author is a thing. The artist's interpretation of their work is just their interpretation of their work. Other interpretations are also valid and just as correct from any one person's perspective, per se, you know? That wasn't a great spot to use that POW, I think. Yeah, I got everybody, like, before the boxes here. And I didn't get an item. Also have the tendency of repeating the same moves over and over, using sheer power instead of strategy. That is true. That is true. Bosses can rely on the power that they have rather than, you know, having to, you know, find a way around that dynamic. Give me that. I thought Toad's Pit Crew was going to get that, but no, he didn't. Oh, I love that. Love that ramp. Alright, I'm going to use this here. Excuse me. That was funny. Oh, the Toad almost getting that star? Yeah. I tried to get too nutty with it there. Yeah, that's gonna cost me. Have bananas. Or not, I suppose. Bullet Bill coming through. Take this turn tight. Okay. Got ninth, but at least I didn't get hit at the end. That Toad should be a clip. Maybe it will be. Maybe I'll make that a clip. We'll see. Some people are still mad at Assassin's Creed. Really? Why? I don't play the Assassin's Creed games, so I don't know what's up there. I'm actually going to stop recording. There we go. Let's reduce the load on my computer. People are better about the Black Samurai. Oh, is it that? Is it that bad? Mad? No, yeah, like, what, oh, are they still mad about the Black Samurai? Was that an Assassin's Creed game? If so, then yeah, because people are just racist and want video games to be a white supremacist fantasy land. You know? Yeah. From what I heard, the game wasn't even all that good, but people made such a huge fuss about, like, the game having a black character. It's like, no, it's about samurai. This is historically inaccurate. When they literally went through, like, historical documentation to pick out what they thought would be an interesting case for the player, being sort of a fish out of water. So they picked a black man that became a samurai in Japan. And like, that guy was real. Like, that's a real person. It's not ahistorical or anything. But they were just mad at the concept of a black person in their video game. Probably made a lot of money. Yeah, there's no such thing, they say, as a bad publicity. How much that holds on any given issue, it could vary. But yeah, in this case, I think it was definitely the case that that game blew up because of all the right-wingers getting super mad at it. And so it probably, you know, that probably helped it. I don't know how I got away with that, but somebody back there was a meat shield for me, so thanks, I guess. be funny if it encourages Assassin's Creed to make more controversial games. It would be interesting. Like, they do something pretty uncontroversial, I would say, and then it just, like, generates controversy anyways. So then they, like, say, you know what, fuck it, what if we did something controversial, right? But it's not likely that that's going to happen, I don't think, because Assassin's Creed is made by a AAA game studio. And unless you're fucking, like, making Metal Gear Solid, you're not making anything particularly controversial as a AAA developer. Does that make sense? You know? Indie developers make cool and interesting and, like, innovative and controversial stuff all the time. With the big devs, the types that would make stuff like Assassin's Creed, it is much less common. I don't mean, like, obviously, but they'll try to hide it. More likely what's going to happen is that the, like, maybe the devs might have an inclination one way or the other, and then all the executives rush to compromise and sanitize the artistic vision of the game to make it as sanitized as possible to make more money, because art is not necessarily profitable, which studio executives hate, because they hate art, and they love money. Indie doesn't have billionaires funding it? Yeah, that's exactly why. Is that there's less institutional capture over the indie gaming industry, I'll do one more race, than there is over AAA and gaming as a whole, you know? So if it's like one person, like I could be an indie game dev studio. Like if I really committed to the bid, if I had like a fucking artistic vision like that and was like, I know exactly what I want to make, I could do it. And there's nobody that could stop me in writing whatever messaging I wanted to into my game or making it however I wanted it to be, you know? And there's plenty of people that make games in that kind of setting. It's either just them or them and a group of friends or something like that. Or even that there's like a small dev studio. It's the bigger dev studios where you start to get those kinds of pressures from investors and stuff. Remember how surprised people were when the Five Nights at Freddy's developer turned out to be a median voter? Yeah, I wasn't like so surprised, I guess. That he turned out to be like a middle of the road, like, well, as much as a traditional Christian could be, like a middle of the road kind of person. But even he had some like comedically written like class commentary in his game, right? Like there's all sorts of stuff about like there's a sort of casual acknowledgement of the, it's just an exaggeration of the real world shittiness of being a fucking minimum wage employee at a fast food place. Just this time, in addition to already bad conditions on the job, now there's also animatronics that are coming to kill you. You know? Like the first and second games, very, very, very much so, it was like that. You know? And he's also pretty good at making, like, scary stuff, I think. Just not lately. Ever since Five Nights at Freddy's got huge, like, after Five Nights at Freddy's 4, I think things started to get a bit less scary and less intimidating from the game series. You know, sister location and a fucking security breach and whatever else. Not as scary as FNAF 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Even though I don't think FNAF 3 was all that scary. Trying to make fun games not scary. The scary thing was out of spite. Yeah, that's right. He was trying to make games that were fun. And he did, to his credit. He made a game that was really fun. He made, what was it, Pizzeria Simulator, that tycoon kind of game. It was like a hybrid between tycoon and horror. And that is a cool game. That has what I believe are like very fun gameplay elements. But yeah, I remember he like made another game that was supposed to be like cute and about animals, but they looked kind of off-putting. So out of spite, he was like, "What if I made a horror game?" I'll say this: some of the best projects are motivated out of spite, or some of the worst even. You know, spite is a powerful motivator. it gave us Five Nights at Freddy's, you know? One more games like Pizza Simulator. That game's cool. But I think it's a different genre than most of the series. Like, Tycoon games are like a genre. You know, like Roller Coaster Tycoon or whatever. But yeah, that makes sense. I didn't mean to do that, but this guy was really bumping me, so. Okay. That was a decent enough last race. Your watch has been Hotel. No, I have not, but there are people in my chat who've watched it. I've heard good things. I also know that it is like extremely queer coded. So that endears it to me a little bit. Anyways. Oh yeah, I wanted to mention something about spite, the great motivator. If spite has motivated me to do not so great things, but things that succeeded nonetheless. You don't say? Yeah, a fucking statement of the century, I know. I want to, every time spite as a motivation comes up to like do stuff, I'm kind of fondly reminded of a paper that I wrote in college. I took a lot of anthropology classes because I have a bachelor's degree in anthropology. One of them was a theory class, anthropology theory, where you learn about, I don't fucking know, you learn about a little bit of Foucault, you learn some Durkheim, some fucking, I don't know, Marx and Weber and whoever else, right? The sort of social scientists of the 19th century and some in the 20th century, right? And then at some point it diverges from sociology. We had to write a paper, a couple papers in that class about who these people were and what their theory was, right? Like, how did they think this whole culture thing worked? In retrospect, the concept of anthropological theorists is kind of dumb. You know, like, I think about it, it's like, how does this culture thing work? And my answer is kind of like, if you're trying to make this a grand theory of everything, who the fuck cares? You know? It's important to understand why, like, certain things are relevant when, but you know, especially the early works just didn't, very hit or miss. Anyways, here's my scientific paper, why billionaires should not exist. I mean, there are sociological papers to that effect. You could write something like that, and plenty of economists and sociologists have. But nobody listens to them, so, you know. Anyways, one of the papers we had to write, it was like, okay, you could write about one theorist, or you could do kind of an encapsulation of all of these theorists, and basically, like, compare them to each other. Where would their differences be? How would their views of the world differ from each other? What aspects of their theories would be different and conflict with each other? And because I'm also like a massive nerd for Pokemon, because I play a shit ton of Pokemon, I decided, you know what? I have enough knowledge about Pokemon, and I'm confident enough in my understanding of these theories and these theorists, most of whom I couldn't even tell you their names nowadays, but at the time, you know, their names were swimming around in my head. What if I basically wrote my paper and be like, okay, if you were to create a Pokemon game, this kind of assumes you have some knowledge, at least of a game like Pokemon Red and Blue, or Pokemon, like whatever, the concept of a Pokemon game. It assumes you know what that is. What would a Pokemon world look like if you applied their theory and their like analytical framework to shape the world of Pokemon? What would that look like? And I did that. I spent a ton of time researching for this, using resources from Pokemon and from my textbook, resourcing like certain regions where I think the game would take place, what kind of society would it look like, what time period, what kind of Pokemon would be present, based on certain themes that are outlined in like Pokemon's Dex entries and stuff like that. And it ended up being this like a 20-page. It wasn't supposed to be a story. It was more so supposed to be like you're playing a Pokemon game that is made using the theories of this person. What does that world look like? You know, it's an analytical paper, not necessarily an argumentative or narrative one. Nonetheless, it was like 20 pages long when I was done with it. I was really proud of it because there were like half a dozen theorists that I was writing this paper on. So I had to like do what I could to not overstate the case with any one of them, right? And I turned the paper in to my professor. And he was like, you need to do it again. He gave me an F on this paper. I got a 0 on this paper, and he told me to rewrite it. Probably is the thing I'm like, up to that point, I was more proud of that paper than most other things I had written to that point, you know? And it got a 0. And he told me to rewrite it. And I was like, okay. I fucking hate that this guy doesn't see what I'm trying to do here. Like, I'm really not a fan of that. It wasn't like, it was one of those moments where it was like, I don't deserve a failing grade on this. So you know what I'm going to do? Out of spite, I'm going to write a paper that deserves a failing grade. So I went back, and I went through each theorist, and it was the most dry, uninteresting, I wrote on purpose. I wrote the most dry, uninteresting, done to death, like, fluff piece of bullshit that I've ever, like, put, like, my fingers to the keyboard in order to write, you know? Like, straight up, I wanted this paper to have no value. I wanted it to be like, you look at this paper, you'd read it, and be like, that didn't tell me anything interesting. I learned nothing from this. I wrote a bad paper on purpose. And I turned that in. I got an A. I poured my heart and soul and all of my analytical skills and critical thinking skills into a 20-page paper that was a hybrid between my interest in Pokemon, ironically, after the teacher encouraged us to get creative with the kind of papers we were writing, specifically saying that we could incorporate some of our own interests if we felt it appropriate, the one that he gave being sports. At his encouragement, tried to induce some creative juices into the process, and I got an F. And then I went back and wrote the most uncreative piece of shit paper that I could possibly muster. And I got an A. I think I would punch the teacher at that point. Luckily I have more restraint. I'm still friends with this guy, but I've you know, teacher thought it was communist. We definitely chafed now and again because this guy was a liberal, in parentheses, neutral. Not you know, both in the good and the bad ways. This guy was a liberal, and I was a flaming Marxist. Still am in many ways. You know, so I was constantly seeing the class dynamics in all of these things that we were reading and that we were writing. He was like, you know, you think that there's something like other than class present here? Like basically trying to drag me away from class analysis, and every time I'd be like, well, that's what jumps out to me. So that's what I'm talking about here. And obviously the racial elements, the imperialist elements are also there and relevant. But I feel like there's an underwriting constant through line of class. And he constantly, you know, chafed. We just kind of had that kind of relationship. But we were also good friends. Class is the only thing that matters? No, I don't think so. I disagree with that assessment. I wasn't a class reductionist then, and I'm not now, but I would constantly talk about class because I saw it everywhere, you know? And I guess maybe what he was reading into it was that I was saying class is the only thing that matters, which it isn't. But it's what I saw most frequently. And what I saw fit to comment on. Anyways, yeah, that was the story of spite being a great motivator. Spite, this was like a term paper. It was the equivalent of like a midterm exam. And out of spite, I got an A on my exam. Pure spite. I like fucking Ooh, yeah. The fire was burning in me for all of the reasons that an artist would not necessarily expect. Anyways, that's a fun story from my time in college. In the process of solving class issues, you solve the other ones. Yeah, and it's more like if you want to address class issues, you also, in the process of doing so, will build a multi-ethnic, multiracial, you know, comprehensive, like gender inclusive front. You know, it's not to say that all of these issues are subsumed under class, but you can't actually solve any of them without looking at class issues as well. You know, like the gender disparity will only persist so long as class inequality exists. You know, because the system that perpetuates class inequality has an incentive to maintain other forms of hierarchy as well, as they relate to keeping people in an underclass. Anyways, I've said anyways like 5 times now. I that's all the juice I got in me for this stream. I thought that was fun. It was a nice return to return to tradition, in parentheses, live streaming. Yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Oh wait, actually, no, not yet. I will see you guys next time. I think somebody would be live. I would raid them, I think, maybe. Bernie Sanders is live? Might need to talk about more media because we're running out of stuff to talk about, right? Yeah, I mean, you know, of course, that's not a bad idea, like having media stuff to talk about. It's just that I have to be more choosy about what kind of news stuff I talk about because everything just happens at breakneck pace. Anyways, I don't think it looks like Hassan isn't live right now. But you know who is live? Senator Bernie Sanders is live on twitch.tv/Bernie_Sanders. So you guys are gonna enjoy the most based senator in the country, accompanied by AOC. I saw at the she's giving a speech. Have fun. Can't believe this Mario Kart streamer raided a U.S. senator. That's crazy.